Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. It's your boy, Illeagle86. I'm here again with my good friends Techtic and Nerdbomber here at the Online Warriors podcast in the month of October. Spooky month. It's getting dark early. And it's this time of year that I always like to check in on my friends. Check in on my friends, make sure they're adequately preparing for daylight savings time. We always talk about daylight savings on this show. We do it twice a year. I'm moving our typical conversation up 2 weeks to make sure we hit it before it actually happens. Because I want to make sure we're not talking about it when it's already happened. You need to prepare, people. You need to have a plan.
Be prepared.
Dun, 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 dun. Nerdbomber, I have to imagine just the mere thought of this has you horribly depressed. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, yeah, because then we get into that season when, at least right now, when I'm driving home from work, it's sunny out, and I have maybe a glimmer of 45 minutes where I could technically be outside if I wanted to. Now I get no choice in the matter, and it's going to be sad.
And it makes no sense. It's only 3 months. Just leave it alone. Leave my clocks alone.
Counterpoint. I feel like I'm always providing the counterpoints to daylight savings, and this is kind of a weird counterpoint, but still, this may give people some inclination as to what neck of the woods we reside in, which we try to keep less public. I don't care. It's going to be in the mid to high 70s tomorrow where we are, and I'm sorry.
That's kind of wild.
Miss me with that. I hate that. Can it be over?
No.
Can we have fall? Can I wear a sweater once in my life? Is that okay?
No.
It's really starting to grind my gears, and if we're transitioning into daylight savings mode, that means there's less daylight to just heat me.
That's not.
It is to me. Scientifically, maybe not, but to me, it's absolutely a thing. So, daylight savings is coming up. I believe it's November 2nd. It's the night between November 2nd and November 3rd is when it do be hitting. And for those that just really only care about the 2 days that are laid out in front of them, this is the fun one. This is the one where you gain an hour. You fall back, which means you gain a free hour. So, spend that time doing something you love. Playing video games, reading a book, sleeping. For me, it's probably going to be sleeping because I think the actual change takes place at 2 o'clock in the morning. I guess that's the ideal time to do it so that it doesn't mess everything up. But
no, I stay up until 2 and I like to stare at the clock. And then as the time shifts, I watch it happen in real time. And it's I just warped back in time. It's great. I love it.
How many days would you say pass in your household before you just go around and change all the clocks in the house?
I mean, most things are automatic. The only thing that we really have to manually change is the microwave and the stove.
The microwave.
And
right.
I don't know. I feel like last year we were on top of them. And by we, I mean Techtic, not me.
Yeah, I'm really just referring to the microwave and the stove because I think otherwise we're in pretty good shape here too. I'll tell you, we might wind up going a couple days and it's the dumbest thing because I look at it and I'm like, I know it's wrong, but I can just math it out. I'm just giving myself math practice. That's the way I like to think of it. So, anyways, like I said, prepare yourselves, make a plan, and be ready for whatever 3+ months of darkness, just complete darkness at all times. Which, again, I'm sure Nerdbomber is psyched about. We got a great show today for all y'all. We are going to do something a little bit different. So usually we come at you with 3 crisp news topics. This week, it's 2 crisp news topics. The reason for that is that one of the crisp news topics is what we refer to in the industry as a fat daddy. And no one refers to it in this industry. I don't even know what industry we're really in. But I'm referring to the Xbox Partner Preview, which happened last week. We got something like 14 games, trailers for 14 games. We're not going to do that usual bull crap of hey, we're going to pick 2 or pick 3.
No, we don't want you to feel slighted. We want to give everyone its time of day.
Running it back. And I just want to be upfront about that because we're going to get into this right away. There is one trailer on here I did not watch because I didn't want to be spoiled for anything. And that was Alan Wake 2, The Lake House. Because I do intend to play Alan Wake 2. And I was worried that the Lake House expansion trailer was going to tell me something that I wasn't supposed to know. So I just went ahead and just skipped that. But I watched everything else on this list. Yeah. So what's going to happen is that you guys can talk about that. I'll stop out for a cup of coffee and come back. I'll probably actually just sit here and listen to you guys talk about it. But please don't spoil me.
I mean, I don't know enough about the game to spoil it. So all of my comments are very generic about that one specifically.
we're going to run through the partner preview, and then we're going to talk a little bit about a Will Smith movie from like the mid 2000s, specifically 2004. And those of you listeners that are out there are probably like, oh, I know what movie came out in 2004 that had Will Smith in it. Although for all I know, in 2004, I feel like Willard, he was putting out multiple movies a year. So it's possible you don't know. But we're going to talk a little bit about iRobot and Elon Musk. So that's just a little tease for what comes later. But let's dive right into the partner preview. Now, I first of all want to give a big shout out to IGN. That's neither here nor there with respect to the showcase, but I don't know if either of you guys had this experience, but I tried to load the IGN recap for the partner preview on my phone, and it repeatedly crashed my Google Chrome. So I guess also a shout out to Google Chrome. But there's something about IGN that my
Your phone
iPhone,
is just like
shout out to my
absolutely not.
iPhone, you just can't handle it. I think it's because it tries to play all the videos for every game at the same exact time or something. I don't really know what it's doing, but it literally just crashes out. So yeah, shout out to all those companies. So instead I have an article up from Polygon. This recap officially sourced by Polygon, and I'll be kind of running through all of the trailers in the order that it provides them. I don't know if it was the actual order that they were shown in the showcase, so there may be some jumping around a little bit, but look, we're all going to be okay. We're going to make it work. Like I said, over a dozen trailers, over 25 minutes. Actually, the first one on this list, ironically, is Alan Wake 2, The Lake House. So
you can leave now.
I'm going to stop out for a cup of coffee. No, I mean, I'm not going to, again, I didn't watch this one. So, over to you guys.
So this was a expansion pack for Alan Wake 2, The Lake House. And for me, it looked just standard spooky, scary stuff that Illeagle would like.
Yeah, I still haven't played any of the Alan Wake games, but this looked sufficiently spooky if you're into that kind of thing. I'm certainly not. I'm sure I'll probably get around to playing Alan Wake anyway, but there was like a paint wall monster. That was pretty neat. That's really the only takeaway I had out of the trailer other than, damn, this looks spooky. There was like a paint wall monster, and that was pretty neat.
Waiting for him to go, oh, come on.
No, it's hard for me to square you saying I'm going to play this eventually, Nerdbomber. This game to me feels like maybe the antithesis of the games that you would enjoy just because it's going to give you the heebie-jeebies.
Well, so apparently though, and I've heard mixed things. Have you played the first Alan Wake game?
I have played the first Alan Wake. I've not played the second one. The first one,
I heard that wasn't
this.
as spooky scary. Like I heard it was kind of suspenseful, but it was a little bit more of a detective, like not quite a walking simulator, but more of like a detective game than it was super spooky scary. And I feel like that I could play. The second game, I don't know.
Yeah. It's the first game. It's a kind of a mix of both of those things. There's definitely walking simulator elements. I don't know that there's a lot of like outright jump scares, but there are a few. So just throw that out there, jot that down. But also like combat is such that, yeah, it can be pretty, it's just very tense. It's very, very tense. It's possible you would do well with it, but there are definitely stretches of that game that are intended to be scary. Not so much, maybe not in like the Until Dawn way or even the Dead Space way, but like definitely like adjacent to that. So The Lake House comes out October 22nd. So that's all I can say about it because that's what's written down here. I do love Alan Wake. Now, this next one, we're going to talk about this one for a little bit longer because I think this one is my favorite one, which, you guys don't have the article in front of you. Which one was my favorite one? Let's see if you can guess.
Cronos.
Yeah, you liked Cronos. I literally
Cronos
have
The
in
New
my
Dawn.
notes, Illeagle.
Yeah, I mean, this trailer had everything. Oh, an old lady playing chess. I don't want to call it a Dead Space clone because that's probably diminishing what this is.
Yeah,
However,
I didn't get Dead Space vibes. I mean, there's obviously like the main character is in a spacesuit and like walking through a spacey type thing, but I more got based on like the weird tool that he had at the end when he took the old lady's head with it. I'm assuming. I think it's like some kind of like mind weapon where he then like enters her mind, which is probably what they were like chess pieces in the dark space. I feel like it's more like a mental horror game than it is like space.
I think watch from the brief, because they showed kind of some gameplay towards the end of this trailer. It looked very Dead Space to me. You're walking around, you're holding a gun, you're in a presumably powered spacesuit, and you're waiting for what really seemed like, I guess they didn't outright say like undead or like dead like zombie sort of things, but that's kind of what they literally looked like necromorphs to me. So like, again, it's diminishing to say this looks like a Dead Space clone, and I think it needs to be borne in mind that I say that with all love. If this is a Dead Space clone, I'm probably going to love it. So that is probably the best thing that it could be.
And I think this is by Bloober Team. I don't know if you've played any of their other games. I played their Blair Witch game, but they are pretty good. Like, they've been improving with every title. And again, I don't really play spooky, scary games, but Blair Witch I thought was pretty good. And I think they just did the Silent Hill remake, and I think they're a studio that is making a name for itself in horror. So I feel like this would be a good match for you. Yeah,
what I'm trying to look up right now is, am I going to be able to play this game ever? Because I'm concerned that this is going to be, just a Microsoft exclusive, so to speak.
I think a lot of the games here were not Xbox exclusive. I think because this was a partner showcase, I don't think that this was a lot of, exclusivity type deals. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, only 5 of these games were on Game Pass, so.
It has a page on the PlayStation Store, so I think I'm safe. I also got a vague Returnal vibe from this, and I don't know if that's just a function of the setting, but in particular, again, with the gameplay spot at the end, it felt a little Returnal-y to me too, which again is a compliment because I love the amount of Returnal that I've played. So really, really into Cronos The New Dawn. Could be a early buy for me. Maybe not a day one buy necessarily, but of all the games that are here, again, easily the most potential early buy sort of game for me. Also, how does he see anything in that helmet? There's no eye holes.
There's a little triangle.
There's that little zipper thing.
Oh, you think he's looking through that?
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, his eyes are too far apart. Well, I guess
maybe you don't know what's inside that. Like, maybe that creature has one triangle eyeball and it looks through the little zipper thing.
That would be a good reveal. So yeah, Cronos The New Dawn. It's expected out next year. I don't think we got an official release date for that. It's essentially at this point just been announced with a very cool trailer. I'm going to be annoyed with Blindfire.
Blindfire looks like it's exclusively online FPS, and that's it. No story, no content, nothing else but online shooter. The shooting looks cool because it kind of gives me like laser tag, cyberpunk vibes, which is really, really neat. But like, I am just very anti online shooter, and that's it.
See, I thought this looked neat, if maybe a little gimmicky. I think one of the problems with any new first-person shooter is that they tend not to really differentiate themselves enough from what's already out there. And obviously, by bringing a completely new mechanic to the arena, pun intended, I guess, they are introducing something that'll make them stand out from, your Call of Duties, which just dropped, or will be dropping, I guess, next week, and all of those type of games. That said, while it's an interesting concept, I do wonder if it would get really tiring after a while, like not being able to see your enemy. I think one of the places that first-person shooters really thrive are people trying to, quote-unquote, get good and increase their skill level by practicing and their twitch reflex.
Grinding.
And I think by obviously introducing the element of darkness, which kind of levels that playing field, I feel like you might turn some of those grinders off because there's going to be almost like an element of luck to it. And I don't know how they're going to implement, there has to be some skill element. It can't just be blind firing in the dark. So I'm very intrigued to see what the actual gameplay looks like. Because for what I think happened in this trailer, it was more of like, it was sort of gameplay, but it felt like scripted. It didn't seem like it would be what
you're getting
to
what bothered me. Yeah,
you're
getting to what bothered me.
If you hit them, they glow. But if you shoot, do you also glow, like revealing your position?
I don't know.
I would think you would, but
yeah.
It's unclear. And yeah, Nerdbomber, you're touching on what bothered me, which other trailers have done this before, and it bothers me every time, which is they give you a HUD and they put you in first-person view like you're playing the game, like it is gameplay, and it's not gameplay. You got to pick one. You got to pick one because now when I play the game and it doesn't look like that, I could potentially feel ripped off. If I'm not a necessarily discerning viewer of the trailer, I might think, oh, wow, that's the gameplay. Like, it's so weird to do that, to like basically be like, hey, the gameplay is going to be like this, but less cool because it's going to be less dynamic because it has to be, because it's a first-person shooter game. Like, I never understand when trailers do that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's an early access. I think it's a great concept. I do. I can understand the the fears of it being a little bit one-dimensional and lacking replayability, but I guess I just have to believe that they have a plan for that. What that plan is exactly, I'm not sure, but...
Well, what's weird is, like, I almost feel like this should be an add-on. Like, I don't know how often you guys play Call of Duty. I feel like you guys kind of are completely out of that gameplay phase of your life, but I still, dabble in some Call of Duty, and every now and then they'll introduce like a new game mode. Same with Halo. They introduce new game modes, like limited edition, especially around like Halloween time. And this feels like something that would be tacked on as like a special mode to one of those games. But I don't know if it could carry an entire, playing community on its own. But we'll see. It's in early access, like you said. So maybe I'm wrong.
WTF game 1 of 2 that I'm going to mention. Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii.
Okay, so I don't know.
I have a lot of questions about this one.
No, I don't think any of us have dabbled in the Yakuza games at all, right?
No, I have not.
And I feel like this kind of looks cool because you're a pirate and you're like bombing around on your ship, and then there's also some like fun combat on land. But I feel like I'm very intimidated by the fact that it's a Yakuza game and I don't know anything about the franchise, and this is probably not my place to jump in. But like it looks cool. I really liked the Pirates of the Caribbean world in Kingdom Hearts 3. So like, I don't know. I wish I felt comfortable enough jumping in at this point to the Yakuza series, but I don't.
Plus, like, even never
like
playing any of the games, like the second you saw the quirky mannerisms, you knew it was part of the Like a Dragon franchise. So that's great that they're kind of branching out and trying new things, but boy, was I confused, which I think is right for this franchise. This just looks like a fun, turn your brain off, have a good time.
Well, okay, like you guys are implying that there's some sort of encompassing lore, and I guess
is a whole
watching this
franchise.
trailer. Well, right, but my point is, watching this trailer, I can't really imagine that being the case because it just seems like a guy washed up on an island and then he's like, I guess I'm a pirate now. I can't imagine it having any meaningful connective tissue to any other games. I mean. The Yakuza franchise, apparently, Polygon saying it's based in magical realism. Like, I can see that. I think this was frustrating for me because I think that the pirate space in games is a potentially fertile ground. Like, I don't know that we have a lot of really good pirate games, and like
all the ones that we do have are like multiplayer. No shade to those games like Sea of Thieves and Skull and Bones, but like that's not what I want.
Right, you want like a Red Dead Redemption, but pirates. Like that's what I would.
No, I don't want any but pirates. Just.
But that's what I would generally want, and like
you didn't even get a laugh out of him. You didn't even get a laugh.
I'm dialed in. I want to understand Like a Dragon. Like I wanted this game to be
just a pirate
goofy.
Game.
Yeah, like I was like, you almost got it, because like I think there are elements of it in the combat and in just like the seafaring that it looks like you can do. Like yeah, I'm like, you're almost there. You're almost to a game that a lot of people want, and like I'm sure a lot of people want this one too. But like it just feels less satisfying to me, having not really involved myself in that franchise at all. Like I said, that was 1 of 2 where I was like, what on earth is even happening here? Let's talk about Mouse PI for Hire.
Yes.
I think, Nerdbomber, take it away. I feel like I'm getting all the lead-ins. I want someone else to have one.
I mean, you lead away, but I just said yes, because this one was very exciting. It kind of reminded me of the old cartoony style. Obviously, they're kind of leaning into like the Mickey Mouse, the Steamboat Willie style of stuff, and kind of like the Cuphead animation that we've seen as well. But it's an interesting mix of first-person shooter, but also detective game. And I'm a little concerned the first-person shooter segments felt a little like floaty. I don't know if they felt grounded enough to feel super satisfying, but maybe it's different when you're actually like playing and controlling the character. It's always different when you're playing a game yourself. But something about this just felt really unique and cool, and I'm in. A lot of detective games I don't tend to like lean into just because I find them kind of slow, and it's almost a little bit too much of me then doing like word problems. But because it's blended with first-person shooter, I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, I do generally agree, but really with everything you said. I mean, I think the visual concept is really striking. It's really enticing. I think the shooting gameplay looked a little off. Like you use the term floaty, but I wouldn't have necessarily used that term. I would have just said it looks off in some way. I think it's it's an interesting idea to mix the noir genre with goofy, cartoony stuff. And like you said, I think to some extent Cuphead has kind of also done that. So there's precedent for it. But I also wonder a lot about copyright. Like, what makes a mouse Mickey Mouse? Is it the
I thought Steamboat Willie's on
ears?
public domain now.
So do you think that's the... I think you are right about that. So is that the impetus for this game? They're like, sweet, we can finally use Steamboat Willie. Let's make him shoot a bunch of guys.
Potentially.
You know.
But by the way, it's not
interesting.
floaty or the other thing. I think it's twitchy. That was
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't. I guess I don't know what adjective.
like this. This game was
a little off.
Concept was peak. The animation awesome. It's just they need to smooth it out. Just smooth your transitions.
So you think it was a frame rate problem? I mean, I could see that. Yeah,
maybe not
I think,
but just.
Well, I think too, the character art was almost in a slightly different style than the background art. Like the background was fuzzy, as if you would like see it on an old timey cartoon or TV show, and then the characters felt very crisp in that old art style, but very crisp and like HD. And maybe that was it. I don't know. Something about it was a little bit off, though. I can't really put my finger on it. But something was off.
I think a lot of the games that we saw here, and I don't know that this was one of them, but a lot of the games that we saw throughout all these trailers, when they would show gameplay, they would give the little disclaimer of like, this is in development gameplay. So it's certainly within the realm of possibility, obviously, and maybe it goes without saying that that sort of stuff is going to get cleaned up between now when the game comes out. In this case, it's going to be available in 2025. So there's certainly still some time for them to round out the sharp corners, so to speak. So we'll be on the lookout for that. Subnautica 2. So this is the thing I wanted to say about this one, because I think this was one of the bigger reveals. I think this was one of the ones that was towards the end of the original showcase. Is going to be on Game Pass, early access in 2025. I've never considered Subnautica to be a scary game.
Yeah, I always thought it was. Like I remember Subnautica being more about like exploration in the ocean. This trailer went a totally different route from what I remember, which is like kind of cool.
Yeah, it went for like nightmare fuel.
You know, the ocean is actually terrifying.
Oh, it's super scary. I mean, there's so many unexplored parts of it, and like, you know, undiscovered species. Although, yeah, this is on an alien planet, so like they can do whatever they want essentially. But it is a co-op game. It is described as a survival game. Again, my impression was the same as what yours is, which is like, oh, I'm just gonna like get out of my submarine and go explore the ocean and have a good time and like just kind of relax a little bit. And yeah, again, the trailer didn't really lean that way. It more so leaned in the direction of like the ocean is scary and it'll kill you, which is, again, it's probably true. So if anything, it's accurate. But yeah, Nerdbomber, any thoughts on Subnautica 2 that we haven't already said?
I mean, the thing, and I don't know if they stated this necessarily in the trailer or if I read this after the fact, but there's apparently co-op in Subnautica 2 as well. And that could be cool because, as y'all know, I didn't think this was a scary franchise either. I've said this like 1,000 times during this conversation. I don't play scary games, but maybe if I had other people there with me, I would play.
You don't play scary games alone.
I think that as a broader point, them having this partner preview in October felt very intentional in the sense of how many games they have that have not even an outright scariness at times, but like, so let's move on to the next game, Animal Well, which like there's a lot to be said for it. I think this is another game that like it has an arguably teensy ooky spooky vibe.
This was the dumbest trailer in the.
It was so undermined by the narration. I hated the narration.
Shadow.
I think they really blew it on the narration. I'm glad that you felt the same way because I felt
like I'm fine with little 8-bit side scrollers, but like take yourself just like a little bit serious, just like a little bit, and don't just. It was maybe kind of funny, like the first 3 shadows, but like reel it in there, bud.
I don't say this lightly because I think it's a term that's thrown around too much. I think it was cringe. I think the trailer was cringe. And I think it's, like you said, I did when I watched this trailer, the other thing I thought was that it seemed like a somewhat Techtic-y game. And them missing you with the narration is a pretty major indictment of their trailer strategy, because I feel like you should have been very interested in this, and now I feel like you're not because of how the trailer was structured and this guy talking in the background. Probably had a cool concept, or has a cool concept,
it was lost
but
on
was
me.
Undermined.
That said, this game is out elsewhere, and it did get good reviews. So I feel like, to your point, the trailer kind of might have killed interest for people who otherwise would have enjoyed it.
Do we have any Eden Zero fans in the room?
I wrote down a resounding meh. Sorry.
It's based on a manga. I had
the
no
combat
knowledge
looked
of
clean. That's about it.
Cool. Sweet. I'm gonna breeze over that one because I feel like it's just I don't know. I feel like we've seen a lot of games like that, and I haven't played a single one of them, and I'm not sure that you guys ever have either. So if you're an Eden Zero fan, now would be the time to get on Twitter and yell at us at OW Illeagle86, at OW Techtic, at OW Nerdbomber, and our main show account at Online Warriors 1. Eternal Strands, being released in 2025. It will be on Game Pass. This one I was very interested in.
Yeah, this was probably the one I was the most intrigued by in this entire showcase.
This
Okay,
when I take my notes, I know I'll give you the floor back in a second. But
you can have the floor, Techtic. The floor is yours.
When I take my notes, I go through, and when I see something that I like, I put a dope. This looks dope right next to it. This was my first dope of the showcase. I'm very excited to say. And mainly because it looks like you can do a lot with the skill trees and really make your character your own with various elements, techniques, approaches to taking on enemies and solving a problem. And that was really exciting to me. The floor is yours, Nerdbomber.
I agree with everything you said. I thought the different magic systems that they showed was pretty neat. I also love the art style. I know there's some discourse online whether the art style is generic, but I personally love this art style. I feel like it also ages really well, especially in today's day where I feel like I'd take a while to come back around on games. When I finally get around to playing this, it won't have looked like it aged super badly. I also really love the creature design, and the environments just seem like really vibrant. And honestly, the combat and the magic look fun.
I don't like big swords. Can I say that?
Not a big sword guy?
Not a big sword guy. And I know.
You prefer your swords little? Is it like a personal thing?
What's the other game where they have the giant swords? Is it Final Fantasy? I'm just going to breeze right by that. Is it Final?
Yeah.
I think it's Final Fantasy. The giant sword. And like, can we cool it with the giant swords? You couldn't swing that thing if you tried. I don't care who you are. It's too big.
Didn't they have like big broadswords though back in medieval times? Is that not a thing that was a thing that existed?
Well, yeah, but not like that. Like the biggest broadsword still looks like a sword. This just looks like a rectangle.
But I mean, if you had magic strength, maybe you would have a giant rectangle sword.
I don't think it would be beneficial to have one. That's my point. I'm nitpicking, guys. That was my one issue with this. I agree with everything you guys said. Something that it's a really dumb thing to highlight, but I love when games, so let's say you're facing this giant bird dragon thing. I don't even know what you would call it. And you're just a little guy, right? You're just a guy. So you're just going up and you're hacking away at a leg. I love when the leg turns red. I love when the body part that you're hurting turns red. That really, really gets me going. That's a very, I feel like that's a very old school thing to do in games, and I always appreciate it.
No, I agree with you. I think it's very satisfying.
Yeah. Would you guys be burners, freezers, or throwers? Let's assume you can only pick one, and I'm sure you can mix them together. But I gotta say, I'm gonna be a thrower. Throwing seemed ridiculously awesome.
I like the fact that you could throw yourself.
Yeah,
but you can combine. I would be a fire burner or a fire thrower.
I'm saying pick. Let's say you had to pick one. You have to pick.
But you can combine.
But let's say you couldn't.
Gun to your head. You can only.
Gun to my head. I'm picking ice because it's been proven that ice is stupid overpowered in the X-Men. So going to ice. But
the X-Men strategy, classic. Nerdbomber, are you a burner, a freezer, or a thrower?
I think I would be a thrower because I'm also like thinking about myself in real life. I'm not a very confrontational person. Like I'm not trying to engage in a fight. So if I can just like keep throwing you away from me, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I'm a thrower as well, for sure.
Oh, you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea too, and we'll move on, but I do like the idea of they were very explicit. You can burn anything. Grass, trees, whatever. You can probably throw anything. Like it's kind of like it's like destructible environments almost. Like you can just mess this whole game up. Get in here. That's kind of what their whole vibe is. So very much appreciated that. Mistfall Hunter, described as a mix between extraction games and Souls-likes, expected out in 2025. We quickly transitioned back, or we are transitioning back to Doom and Gloom, but in what I thought was a pretty compelling way. I don't know that
like the whole like
go ahead.
high fantasy gods and monsters bent to games. I don't Souls-like, every time a game says it's a Souls-like, I'm like, but I don't know, something about this seemed neat.
This one had crazy beast designs.
Yeah.
That was, I think this one had the Wendigo, but
you can't say that.
Like it didn't skip leg or
yeah,
arm
Skinwalker.
He's gonna come find you.
It was, as the kids say, yoked.
He's just glazing right over it, but
I thought it was you have to say it 3 times.
No,
that's Beetlejuice, man.
Oh, okay. Because I'm on a cadence of about 1 per day as I describe it.
Well, we're cooked.
We're cooked. Mistfall Hunter out 2025. I don't have a whole lot else to add to that. I think it looked pretty neat. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more about that one as it gets closer to release. I really want to get to Wheel World because this was my other WTF game. It really, let me explain, because I had a couple problems with this. One is I think people that are this into cycling are just going to go outside and do it. Maybe that's an oversimplification, but I don't know that the gameplay mechanic or the concept itself is all that compelling. And then this is another classic indie game thing that, well, let me get to my second point, because there's another classic indie game trailer thing that bugs the bejesus out of me. And it's when you see a whole concept for a game, and then at the end, they're like, oh, there's also this mystical portal that makes no sense in the game world. Anyways, this game's coming out soon. That bugs me a lot. So miss me with this one, but Techtic, it sounds like you have a rebuttal.
It's not about being into cycling. It's about being into a community of players and racing your friends and having a cozy game where you can explore and enjoy the world that's given to you. This looked interesting to me for the exact opposite reasons why you hated it.
Yeah, when it comes to video games, I'm not a world enjoyer. I'm like, you need to give me a task to do. That is my thing with games. If you're just like, just enjoy the vibe, you're gonna lose me.
The game
that
has been called #vibes.
Your task is to ride a bike.
That's not an acceptable task for me in the world of games. That's too open ended. And if I want to ride a bike, I'll just go ride a bike, like for real. Again, oversimplification. If it was a ghost
bike, are you in?
No, I'm out. I think I'm out on that. I don't know if I'd be able to sit on it. This is Annapurna Interactive, and I do like their stuff. I like the cut of their jib generally, but I just don't. It's as simple as I don't think this one is necessarily for me. But it is going to be on Game Pass. So if you're an Xboxer, you just kind of get it. So that's pretty sweet for all y'all. Nerdbomber's Nightmare, ghost hunting game Phasmophobia. Now,
yeah, hard pass.
I want to play the crap out of this because my wife is a big fan of a little show called Ghost Adventures. We were just having a fight about which is better, Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters.
Is the OG, taps all the way.
Chime off in the comments. I know that my Zach Bagans heads are going to show up here.
I'm going to put a poll up.
No doubt.
I'm going to put a poll up.
Put a poll up. Phasmophobia is basically what if you were one of those people, which I think is fantastic. This is another one that it's an established game. I think it's been out on PC for a while now. It's coming to the Xbox Series X on October 29th, so just in time for spooky season. This one looks like, I wouldn't want to pay like $40 for this game. I would want to pay at most $20, and who knows how much it will cost, but
I think it's already out
fun
on PC and potentially some other consoles. I know it's definitely on PC, and I don't think it's that expensive.
It's out on PC for sure. I would hope not. It doesn't look like it should be that expensive. But it also, like, the trailer for this game was like, hey, we won all these awards when this came out. Like, best debut game and stuff. So, certainly has a compelling pedigree. And speaking of pedigrees, we need to talk about The Legend of Baboo. Because...
there's a puppy.
So here's the thing with Legend of Baboo. They don't understand their audience. Well, that... but they also don't understand their audience.
Was weird.
The game is called The Legend of Baboo. Baboo is the dog. People are going to show up for the dog. I mean, come on. People are going to show up for the dog. The dog was in the trailer for like 2 seconds.
I will say the combat looked really good. The animation looked weird, but the combat did look good. And you could pet the dog. This,
honestly, it gave me like Kena Bridge of Spirits vibes. Maybe it's just because the protagonist is like a child with some magical abilities. But really, we know why I'm here. I'm here for the dog. Just like in Kena, and don't get me wrong, Kena was a great game, but I was there for the cute little, I forget what their names were, but the cute little blob things. I was there for that. And now I will be there for the dog.
Hashtag cute little blob things.
Yes.
Let's get that trending on Twitter. Yeah, I honestly, the combat looked fine. This isn't a game that I think I'm necessarily going to play. I was mostly just up in arms about them misusing the titular character of Baboo. So yeah, I just think they don't really understand what their audience is going to show up for necessarily. I think of all the games, this is gonna be harsh, but I think it's true. Of all the games that we saw here, this may have been the most forgettable.
Not
Shadow.
Well, that wasn't forgettable because it was so bad. I'm not saying forgettable is necessarily good. I'm just saying this one was the most forgettable. I basically forgot it as soon as I saw it. I didn't write anything down, but if I had written anything down, it would probably be, why isn't the dog on screen more? That's the only thing I remember. Wuchang, Fallen Feathers.
This was my second dope. So when it first started, I was like, there seems to be this like uptick of like samurai based games, and I was like, oh, okay, another samurai game that's just going to fill in with all the other noise. But then they started to expand upon it, and they showed a magical element, and that kind of gave me Black Myth vibes with the combat and like how it's not just standard samurai, that there's like this extra element, this barrage of attacks and techniques, and I thought this looked really cool.
I would agree. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Souls-likes. I think this was billed as potentially another Souls-like again, but it looked a little bit more hack and slash. I know they're like adjacent genres, but this didn't look quite as Souls-like-y to me. And I guess I'm just excited because I feel like in the last year or so, we've been seeing a lot of games that are based in Chinese history and mythology. And I don't know, this just looked really neat. I love that, and I liked this a lot. And the combat looked pretty fun. The only like negative thing that I really had to say about this trailer was that, and this happens in a lot of games, it seemed like sometimes the combat got lost a little bit in like the combat effects. There were just a lot of like pixels and flashy things going on the screen. And like sometimes that can like
a lot of blood.
Yeah, that like overstimulates me a little bit. But
Nice.
Yeah. That as a just kind of an over, that bothers me because there were other games that did that too. It's like you slash your sword at a guy. There's blood splatter on the screen. There's blood everywhere. But you got to hit him more. He's not dead. It's like, okay, if there's that much blood coming out of him, he's probably going down. That's it. That's just something that bothers me a little bit in general. The other thing that bothers me, I agree with everything you guys said. I think this looks pretty cool. If you have that giant fur coat and it has arms, it clearly has arms in it. Put your arms into the coat. It's cold. He's like in winter. Put your arms into the fur coat. Why you just have your arms at your sides? You have a fur coat, a perfectly good fur coat with sleeves on it. You could put your arms in the sleeves.
maybe it's for mobility. Maybe it would be, weighing you down. You wouldn't get a full range of motion if your arms were
They
in
could
the
slip
coat.
out real easy and get ready to fight.
I don't understand stuff like
He's
that.
not about it. He's not about it.
2025, this is coming to Game Pass. So get hyped for that. We have one left. We're down to the last game.
This was my number one, and this got a dope nasty.
The FBC Firebreak trailer, Federal Bureau of Control. So this is a game that is set in the Control universe. It looks like you're basically just going back to the Bureau from the Control game, cleaning up some sort of disaster. Whether it's what happened in the first game or not is kind of remains to be seen. I would say the main point of emphasis here is I don't know
3-player co-op.
I don't know how often you see 3-player co-op. It's a very specific number, obviously. I think it's a game or a studio rather identifying a fertile ground in the market of like
I could
there's
tell you
2-player
why
co-op
they did
games. There's even
3-player
4-player
co-op.
co-op games. Go ahead. Tell me.
Because of the online warriors.
They said we got to design these folks a game.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope, and it looks like we are going to have, a core gameplay experience that is similar to Control, which I think, did all of us play Control?
I don't think Techtic did, but the two of us did.
I watched.
I was certainly a fan. Also was certainly frustrated by that game many times because some of the gameplay, or some of the difficulty of that game occasionally got my goat.
But I think this won't have that difficulty level. To me, this kind of read as Left 4 Dead in the Control universe.
I agree. There's really just one boss that I'm referring to in Control. I believe it's the boss that's in the fridge. Control heads will know what I'm talking about. Nerdbomber, do you remember the fridge boss? because I wanted to about throw myself out the window after playing that.
Was that the one that then kept
times.
dive bombing you from above? Because that one pissed me off.
I don't remember the specifics. I just remember wanting to kill myself. So I'll have to go back and revisit that. But yeah, first-person shooter, multiplayer, 3-player cooperative. It seems dope as heck. What do you think the chances are that this is 3-player split-screen co-op? Because I think it's probably 0. But it's still fun to ask the question. 0.
I feel like,
0.
it's probably a 0 chance. Well, but that being said, I do wonder what matchmaking is going to be like. Because I think the developers kind of made a point, and this is Remedy's first foray into multiplayer, but I think they made a point to say that it's not going to be like a live service game. It's not going to be like this ever-evolving thing. It'll be more like, again, I don't want to keep comparing it to Left 4 Dead, but it'll be a lot more like the Left 4 Dead experience. And I wonder how the matchmaking is going to be. If you can't fill out a 3-person, Firebreak fire team, how is that going to work?
I do love the crap out of Left 4 Dead. So if it's anything like that, we are certainly in for a treat. So, Techtic, it sounds like your favorite was probably FBC Firebreak, if only because it got the Dope Nasty award. I got to give it up for Cronos The New Dawn for me. I'm probably going to play the crap out of that game. Nerdbomber, any game you want to shout out specifically as being the dopest of the dope?
Eternal Strands for me, for sure.
She want to be throwing herself. I respect it.
All day.
You can cast and you can combine. If there's anything that we didn't talk enough about in the partner preview, you can hit us up again on our Twitter handles mentioned previously in the episode. Let's have a conversation about what games looked the best, what games looked the worst, and why they should take goofy narration about shadows out of all trailers for the rest of time. We'll take a short break now before coming back to talk a little bit about Elon Musk's new robots. But before we do that, I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. Stephen, you goofed up the quiz segment this week. We had to figure out who was hosting because you won the last time you were on the show, and we haven't had a quiz since. So as it happens, I will be hosting again. But Stephen was on the show very recently. He had a guest segment as a result of his producership on our show. He produces the show. He's a night level subscriber on our Patreon. He gets that occasional guest spot as well as the shout out every episode. He gets input into the weekly game segment, which this week I will be hosting. And of course, access to the monthly secret segment and the monthly vlog. There is also a Squire level of support, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and a page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So you can head over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast to grab more of the details there. Thanks again to Stephen. We'll be right back to talk about Elon Musk's robots.
I'm Harrison.
I'm Jordan.
Well, I'm Harrison.
I'm fucking Jordan.
All right!
And we're the Grief Rio Podcast. Let us be your unnatural Sherpa guides on this existential plane of mountainous game and movie exploration.
And don't forget about that spookiness that lives within us all, but mainly in you, you spooky bitch. I'm offended. We've been voted the best podcast to listen to by many.
By many, that means a few. That's more than one.
Results may vary. We'll see you on the next episode of Grief
Burrito. Yeah!
Yes!
All right, we are back to talk a little bit about, well, some things that have happened. I think it was a couple weeks ago at this point. Tesla had their Cybercab Robotaxi presentation at the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank. They showed off their latest iteration of the Tesla bot, dubbed Optimus. They also showed off the Robovan. There's been a lot of discussion and footage on the old Twitter sphere, which of course Elon Musk also owns. And believe it or not, the director of iRobot, Alex Proyas, has crawled out of the woodwork from doing whatever it is he's doing now. I couldn't even say, to basically complain that his design has been stolen. So I want to get into that. Tesla did dub the event We Robot, which, you know, iRobot, of course, is based on an Isaac Asimov short story collection called iRobot, and that this is, of course, a play on that. I kind of wonder a little bit. I mean, I think looking at the robots from iRobot and looking at the Tesla robots, which, by the way, were teleoperated. I want to make that clear because there's a lot of thoughts going around of like, wow, those robots are amazing and how good of robots they are. Like, they are very impressive, but they were being teleoperated, and I feel like that's not getting around enough. The other thing I want to say is that it feels like a kind of generic robot design. Like I don't come down on the side of Elon Musk very often these days, but this guy saying you stole my design, I think is a bit of a crock.
A humanoid robot
his design was a robot.
is like pretty commonplace. And to say like there's like other images like vehicles and trains, and that's where it's kind of also drawing inspiration. It's not just the robot, but I mean, there's tons of sci-fi movies that have similar futuristic trains designs, similar futuristic car designs, and similar humanoid robots. Like, I think this is kind of a...
Well, and
have you ever watched any other sci-fi ever? Dude, we've all stolen everyone else's design since the dawn of sci-fi.
Yeah, futurism is a style, right? It is like a style, and it's one that I think Tesla and Elon Musk like really subscribe to. And I do generally agree. Like, I also don't know that like you said, if you're creating in the sci-fi space, I don't know that you can lay claim to those designs from a copyright perspective, if only because in your world they are fictional, right? Like in Alex Proyas's world, the robots in iRobot do not actually work. They are figments of his imagination. And he's like, hey, if everything was perfect and technology was super advanced, this robot would look like this. Now, here in 2024, Tesla has created a robot that, in at least some small way, does function within that form factor. I think if you can, let me put it this way, I think if you can produce, lasting technology that has a significant impact in the image of science fiction designs, you should be able to do that because it's wicked cool. But like I said, I think that the Optimus robot hype is a little bit overblown right now. But I do think that, you should be able to make a robot look like a robot and not be put under fire from the guy who directed a Will Smith movie 20 years ago. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't know. It'd be cool to have robots. I mean, let's say these robots came out tomorrow and were like fully functioning robots. Would you guys want one?
No, I've seen enough movies to know that just doesn't end well.
I feel like I'd be like, robot, I'm having trouble sleeping. And then it would be like, I'll help you, and put a pillow on my face.
Do you guys know, though, like how annoying doing laundry and dishes is? I want a robot to do two things, dishes and laundry. If they can make a robot that does those two things effectively and nothing else, I would pay as much money as I could to buy it. If you're listening out there, technological innovators, that's all I want. And I bet that if you asked most people, what do you want out of a robot? They would say, I want a robot that can do dishes and a robot that can do laundry and maybe a robot that can like vacuum. That's another thing that I would like to have a robot do. And I know you're about to say, oh, what about Roomba? We got a Roomba. It doesn't work. Shout out to Roomba for not working. I feel like we got scammed by that one. I'm talking about an actual physical person pushing a regular vacuum. That's what I want. And by physical person, I mean a robot, if at all possible.
You can employ someone.
I want a robot because a robot will do it. And I want to never do dishes again. Also, probably cooking. I guess the task list is growing a little bit here, but cooking would come last because I can find joy in cooking. I can never find any joy in doing dishes or laundry. Those are just the two things I most want to give up as far as menial tasks. Let's move on to What Are You Up To Wednesday. This is the part of the show where we talk about what we've been up to. And Nerdbomber, you were out last week, so I'm going to give you first crack at the What Are You Up To Wednesday pulpit. Give us a little speech here. What have you been up to?
All right, so I've been playing Exophobia, and we actually had the developer, Jose from ZarcAttack, on the show a couple weeks back, and he kindly provided a code so we could, give it a test drive for ourselves and give it a little bit of a review. So I have done that. And if you didn't listen to the show a couple weeks back, basically this game is a combination of a first-person shooter and a Metroidvania. And the first-person shooter elements really remind me of, Doom and Wolfenstein in that you can, look side to side, but the vertical is limited, so you don't really have to worry about, like, looking up or anything like that. And you're given a gun that, as you progress and you find upgrades, you'll get additional abilities and stuff like that. But you basically have your gun to start and then, like a dash sort of move. And so far, I've played this on my Steam Deck. So far, it's run perfectly well on the Steam Deck. So if you're a Steam Decker like me, that's, an A+. But it's also on, PC, Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and all of that. I really liked the classic feel of combat in this game. I grew up playing stuff like Doom and Wolfenstein. I mean, obviously, you guys know my history. I became like an Unreal Tournament wacko and loved that. But I mean, it all kind of started playing games like Doom and Wolfenstein. And I really think the slide offers that fun new element, especially like you can use it to knock back enemies. So it'll give you some variance in that combat. And also kind of gives you an element of strategery and makes things feel a little bit faster, which is great because I don't know if you've gone back and played, Doom or Wolfenstein anytime recently, but like compared to games of today and like Call of Duty, just feels a little bit slow. So it kind of gives that fast-pacedness back into the game. And like in any Metroidvania game, there's a lot of exploration and backtracking to find collectibles and upgrades. And, if you guys know me, I'm not a huge fan of Metroidvanias. But one of the main reasons is that a lot of games kind of make you re-defeat enemies when you re-enter an area, and that kind of like just turns me off of it. I found that the enemies didn't respawn, so not only did that make backtracking not, a chore and a pain in the butt, but it also kind of let me know that I was going in the right direction. A little bit of a negative, so while that's one way to kind of know where you're going, there is a map that you can use, but it has a battery that runs out super quickly, and you have to recharge it at the save stations, and that I feel like the battery life was a little bit of a limitation, especially because, there's, I believe, 4 different floors in this game to explore. And like you end up relying on the map to know where you're going. But there is an option in the menu to actually turn that off so the battery doesn't run out, which I ended up doing. And it made my gameplay experience a lot better. But the power-ups were super satisfying. The art style I thought was really cool. I know we talked with Jose when he was on the show about, his intentional limitation of the color palette. And I thought that really gave, a really spacey kind of creepy vibe. The contrast between like the blues and the reds I thought worked really well. And I also thought the enemy design was super cool. I believe there's something like 20 different enemies that you can face. They're all kind of loosely based off like octopuses. And I don't know, I just really liked them. I thought they were all, slightly different, had slightly different attacks and ways that you had to approach them, and made the game feel, like it was ever kind of evolving. You never really got bored because there were enough variation in enemies to combat and approach. Soundtrack was also awesome, very retro and fit the ambiance pretty well. And I think my favorite part in the game was that you can pet the puppies. There's, a lot of puppies you can come across and you can pet them. And it is great. I loved that. You know me, I'd said it before. You put a dog in a game, I am so happy. So I enjoyed my experience with the game. I know you guys both are really into, Metroid style games, especially like Metroid Prime. I feel like if you liked that, this would be a really good, indie game for you to check out. Thank you again to ZarcAttack for providing the code. I thought it was pretty fun. Like I said, I didn't really have any issues aside from the battery life thing, which they had the quality of life to, you could turn that off in the menu. So overall, I thought it was a really fun time.
Yeah, so Techtic and I, contrary to popular belief, we are men and we can never ask for directions. That's just a thing to know about us. So I can never do that. I can never turn off the battery life option. I have to. If the battery runs out, I'll just walk around until I die. Well, you guys... That's how I go about life, too, by the way.
No, I'm turning off the battery life option. I live and die on the maps. And my memory is not great.
You guys also, there's a lot of different difficulty options in this game as well. I think the hardest one is hell. I did not play on that. I'm not going to lie. I played on easy. I found normal mode to be a little challenging for someone like me who doesn't have a ton of experience with this style game. Well, I mean, I obviously have experience with it, but this is not the type of game that I play on the reg. So I found that going towards easy mode was easy for me. I feel like you guys love the challenge. So I feel like you guys would put it on hell mode.
I wouldn't put it on hell mode, but I refused. We've discussed on the show. I refuse to go below normal mode. I'm not willing to do that, regardless of my sanity and happiness. It's not something I can do. So very cool. Exophobia. Very cool. Octopuses are scary also, by the way. I think octopuses are generally scary. Octopi, sorry. Very scary creatures, especially the fact that the plural form of the word is so much different than the singular form of the word. That also freaks me out. So, right on. Anything else to update us on?
That's really the main thing. I mean, I'm starting the new Sally Rooney book, Intermezzo, but haven't really gotten too far into that. So TBD, I'll let you know when I read more of that.
Guys, Shrinking is back. Shrinking is a show on I'm going to do my update now, by the way. That wasn't just me announcing that. That was me announcing what I've been up to. And what I've mainly been up to is there's a show called Shrinking on Apple TV, starring Harrison Ford, Jason Segel, a bunch of other folks. That's very funny. It was created by the creator of Scrubs, along with a few other shows, Bill Lawrence. And that show has returned for its second season. And 2 episodes are out as of this recording. I believe the third one comes out the day this episode drops. I've only watched the first one so far, but it's promising to be a very fun season. So really looking forward to watching more of that show. Otherwise, just grinding on Balatro. I mean, I'm going to be playing that game probably forever. And eventually I will probably stack another game on top of it and play that in the background. But for right now, I'm just basking in the glory of that game. Have to recommend again that anyone who is even vaguely interested, go out and get yourself a copy of that game. So without further ado, we will swing it over to Techtic to wrap us up.
So the main thing I want to talk about is we watched Woman of the Hour, and this is about it kind of stars around Anna Kendrick is on the dating game show, and one of the 3 contestants is actually a serial killer. And it goes through kind of a timeline of his victims and her almost becoming his next victim kind of situation. And it is based on a true story. It's very good and like very disappointing on how terrible detectives were at detecting back in the day. Like, it is shocking. If you like watch this movie and then like look into the actual like real story behind it, it is nuts. This is a great movie. It makes you terrified, uncomfortable. Like, as a non-woman walking to my car, I don't want any woman ever having to walk to their car at night ever again.
2023. So I was about to ask, I mean, Anna Kendrick, I feel like she kind of fell off the map for a while, and I don't know that there was a good reason for that, because I think she's great.
I think, didn't she just do something else fairly recently? I know this was her directorial debut as well. Like, she was that like main character in it, but also directed this entire thing.
She came out in 2021. She came out with Stowaway, which I watched, and it was pretty good. 2022, Alice Darling, which I have never even heard of. 2023 was a big year for her. Self-Reliance, Woman of the Hour, and Trolls Band Together, which is just a sequel to the movie Trolls World Tour, which was a sequel to a different Trolls movie. I think that was just called Trolls. So, yeah, and then she was in the Scott Pilgrim like remake thing because she was in that movie as well. So, keeping it going. I've always been a big Anna Kendrick fan, so that alone is probably worth me watching this movie. Very cool. That brings us to Quiztown, Techtic's favorite place in the world. I will be hosting this week, again, because I hosted last time and Steven won. So congratulations to Steven. Steven is 2-1 on the year. Nerdbomber 13-7, myself 12-8. Techtic 7-18. So bit of an uphill climb, but now is as good a chance as any for you to get back in this thing, because we're going to be talking about June Squibb today. And
I know what that is.
She is a lady. I'm the right person to be hosting this quiz because I also had no idea who this person was. She is the main actress in Thelma, which I know you guys watched fairly recently, which I assume was the inspiration for the inclusion of this topic on the quiz topic poll that we put up on Patreon. We're just going to start off with a very basic question. You guys know the rules. You get 1+1 or an answer of 1 per game. There's 5 questions, 1 tiebreaker as required. And we'll just dive right into it here. Nerdbomber will go first since she has the better record. It gives Techtic a slight advantage. How old is June Squibb? Now, you guys just watched this movie pretty recently, so you should have a vague sense.
I want to say she's like 90, because isn't that what her character was in the movie? So 90.
I think she's 82.
Techtic off to a roaring start. She is 94, so Nerdbomber gets the point, and she is on the board.
You say a roaring start.
It's a little thing called sarcasm. How many acting credits does June Squibb have on IMDb? So I told you how old she is. You can extrapolate. Do some extrapolation. How many acting credits on IMDb?
11.
I'm going to go ahead and use my +1 early and say 12.
How about 99? Guys,
Oh,
she's actually had
snap.
a very successful career. She didn't break out until somewhat recently. In 2013, she had a breakout role that got her nominated for an Oscar. That is not a trivia question. It's just something I learned while looking into her. But she's been in the biz for quite a while, which brings me to my next question. So Nerdbomber 2-0. So Techtic, you're immediately on the ropes. In what year did she make her debut on Broadway in the musical Gypsy?
All right, I'm going to pull out my calculator here and do some math. I feel like Broadway, maybe she was like 20, you know? And so if she's 94 now, it would have been 74 years ago. So that would have been 1950.
1951.
He saves his bacon. It was 1959, so your theory was generally pretty good, Nerdbomber. She just got a little bit of a late start. She was doing a little bit of acting in television before she got to Broadway. So 1959, so Techtic is on the board. Thelma was her first lead role in a film. So that's why she's only recently entered public consciousness for you guys and a bunch of other folks. What was the box office gross of Thelma?
I always fuck this up. So I'm gonna say $74 million.
I feel like less than that. I feel like this was a limited theatrical release. Could be wrong. I'm going to say 20 million.
Nerdbomber, you were right, but you were still too high. You both busted.
Really?
It was 11.6 million. So
Oh, wow.
I'm not even sure if there was, there would have had to have been a theatrical release, but it had to be real limited. So we're headed into the final question. Techtic, you do have a golden opportunity here to tie things up. She, more recently, in 2020, starred in one of my favorite movies of the pandemic era, a movie called Palm Springs. She starred as Nana Schlieffen in that movie. I believe you guys also watched Palm Springs, so you have some familiarity with the movie. Features a time loop. How many days are depicted on screen in the time loop? It's not how many days were they stuck in the time loop. It's how many days did you see on screen?
I don't understand the question.
How many days did you see on screen? Palm Springs, they like relived the day over and over and over again, but they were the only ones who realized like they were stuck in the time loop.
So if they relive 5 days, that's 5 days.
He's not asking how many days they relived, how many days we saw them relive.
Correct.
So this has nothing to do with her.
No.
This is more of a Palm Springs question.
It's
Correct.
more of a Palm Springs question. That's right. I'll cop to that. But she was in all the days, I bet.
I feel like we saw 10 days on screen.
Even if it's like a 2-second thing, that's a day, correct?
That's correct.
We saw 14 days.
He did force the tiebreaker. You saw 21 days in that movie. So we're going to a text-in question. This is Techtic's favorite time, is when he's in a tiebreaker in a quiz. All right, so the tiebreaker question here, I want to ask what her lowest rated Rotten Tomatoes scored movie is on Rotten Tomatoes. So if you go to any actor or actress's page on Rotten Tomatoes, you can see what their highest rated movie is and what their lowest rated. Her lowest rated movie is a movie called Welcome to Mooseport. I'm going to read the synopsis for this movie, and I want you to guess what the tomato meter was. To recover from a vicious divorce, former U.S. President Monroe Cole, played by Gene Hackman, retires to his vacation home in sleepy Mooseport, Maine. When the local town council approaches him to run for mayor in the upcoming election, Cole agrees. As he campaigns against his rival, Handy Harrison, played by Ray Romano, the owner of the local hardware store, Cole comes to learn that well-oiled, sophisticated political machinations have no place in a small town with a friendly populace. What was the critic's score of that movie? Something unbelievable has happened.
Did we do the same thing or did he win?
Techtic won a tiebreaker. Woo! Nerdbomber gets 32%. She was quite a bit too high. Techtic, smart as he is, guessed 8%. It was 13%. This movie was terrible. Also, Nerdbomber, I know you're about to ask, had a 19% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is among the lowest I've ever seen. So this movie must just be out and out awful. I have never seen it myself, but yeah, the returns are not good on Welcome to Mooseport. So yeah, Techtic, that moves you up in the rankings a little bit. You move to 8-18, Nerdbomber to 13-8. I remain at 12-8, and I will square off next week against Nerdbomber for the top spot, really, in the quiz tracking for this year. So in the meantime, we thank you all for joining us here at the Online Warriors podcast. You can head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Let us know what you thought of the show, what you think of the show right now. If you're a longtime listener, if it's your first episode, we don't care who you are. Just come chat with us. Come chat with us on Twitter, handles mentioned previously in the episode. Keep being kind to one another. Daylight savings is coming up. It's about to get very dark. We can all use the light that shines within us to brighten every day.
That sounds very Kingdom Heartsy.
Wasn't that poetic? A good way to end it. We'll see you guys next week. Stay safe and keep on podcasting.